Let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell.
I don't care what anybody says. You're not going to tell me that song doesn't freaking rock. Jam. It's a vibe, man. It's a thing. It's AI too. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Strictly speaking, Unfiltered on a Wednesday, the 7th morning of the first month in the year of our Lord 2026. And we're going to look back in this first half hour at the 6th morning in the year of our Lord 2026, because yesterday, of course, was the anniversary, the 5-year anniversary of the infamous January 6th protests at the Capitol that turned into a riot, that turned into a setup, that turned into a scam, that turned into a whole bunch of innocent people being persecuted and prosecuted by a corrupt government, which is exactly what went down. And I wanted to see how it was commemorated yesterday. I didn't start the show yesterday talking much about it, but now that I've seen how the commemorations went, two very different things by the lunatic left and the conservative patriotic right, now I've got to talk about it, and I'm going to share with you what the White House had to say about it here in a couple of minutes. But first, I just want to welcome you again. We got two great guests today. I didn't come across, well, yeah, I did, technically speaking. I was going to say I didn't come across Jack Windsor late because I've talked to Jack for years, but I came across his video online last night as I was preparing this show and checking out some of the stories. And I saw a post on X from John Rocker. Now, Indians fans may remember John Rocker. Non-baseball fans may not have any idea who I'm talking about. John Rocker was a very... I don't know the best way to describe him, because John Rocker kind of went off the rails a little bit for a while, and toward the end of his career, was accused of some pretty nasty racist comments and some other things. But he was an all-star reliever closer for the Atlanta Braves for a number of years. Then came to the Indians, and everybody who knows baseball knows John Rocker. And I didn't even follow John Rocker on Twitter X. But I was bumping around last night on Twitter, and I saw a post from John Rocker. And the reason I guess it probably was included on my feed is because he was standing there with Jack Windsor in Columbus. John Rocker with Jack Windsor in Columbus. What the hell is this? And John Rocker, for some reason, came up from Florida to go to the fraud centers, the Somali fraud centers, otherwise known as daycares, in Columbus. And the two of them went around doing the whole, investigative journalist thing, along, by the way, with Mehek Cook, who was out there doing something similar. And she got assaulted during the case. Anyway, I was bouncing around online. I saw John Rocker, and I saw him standing there with Jack Windsor. So I played a couple of these in. So late last night, I tapped to Jack, and I said, bro, what the hell is this? How did this come about? How does John Rocker end up in Columbus with you going out there and making videos and exposing some of the the ongoing Somali daycare fraud. And I said, you got to come on tomorrow and tell the story. And so Jack said, done. So he's going to be with us in about 23 minutes at about 7:30. And the other thing I also said to Jack, I said, we've got to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy's choice yesterday. It's official now. I don't know what to make of Rob McCauley other than he's the Senate president and he's very divisive, in maybe not intentionally so, but people are divided on him as with respect to his status as lieutenant governor candidate now for Vivek Ramaswamy. Rob McCauley is liked in a lot of establishment circles. He is not as well liked in a lot of real true conservative circles. He is a guy who has done his part to kill some, I think, pretty popular legislation. And he's a guy who basically, in my view, intentionally or otherwise, kind of helped butcher the district redraw in the state of Ohio. They had the right, given the fact that Ohio is such a huge red state, winning all of the statewide offices in 20 of the last 21 races and winning the presidential race, 3 straight times by big numbers with President Trump, and, having all of the, super majorities in the General Assembly. We should be very simply, we should be about a 12-3 minimum, 12-3 Republican to Democrat congressional district state, where it should be leaning Republican 12 out of the 15. It ought to be 12-3. Maybe it ought to be 13-2. I don't know. But Rob McCauley gave up some things in this to the Democrats, which makes no sense to me, but he gave up some of these things. Some said so that he could make his run for Congress in District 9 and needed some favorable lines there. And in return for getting them, he gave up and some say sold out District 13, where Kevin Coughlin was going to run. And as soon as he saw that it went from being a Republican, +2, I think it was +2, to a Democrat +4 lean after the new redraw, Kevin Coughlin dropped out. And that's a problem. I think he would have been a good candidate for District 13. A bunch of lines in Cincinnati also got changed, which screwed some Republicans out of a strong chance of winning down there. Look, and I don't care too much about it. I mean, we're going to listen to Rob McCauley. We're going to listen to Vivek Ramaswamy. He's got an event tonight in Strongsville, Ohio, where he's going to be introducing Rob as his running mate, and he'll explain why he did what he did. But I'm just saying there are a lot of people that have some problems with this choice. Not saying it's not going to be the right choice in the end, but at this moment, upon just first announcement, there's a lot of people who are saying, what the hell? This might not be the best way to go. Vivek Ramaswamy needs to get some true hardcore conservative people behind him. And there are a whole lot of hardcore conservative people who are looking and saying, what else is out there? We're going to talk to one of them on Friday. Casey Putch is out there. Casey Putch is a very well-known guy, a car guy. Is Casey the car guy, but he's running for Congress. Some say with an intent to beat Vivek Ramaswamy and be an America First governor, and some say with an intent to drive a wedge right in the down the heart of the Republican Party in the state and eventually hand the race off to Amy Acton. I don't know how it's going to go. I just know that it's Vivek Ramaswamy and Rob McCauley now. And we're going to react to that. I'll have Jack on to talk about that at about 7:30. 8:30, the headliner there, I had this up there kind of posted before the show, just in the little countdown time. You saw him, and you've seen him many, many times. There he is. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and he works on the House Oversight Committee as well. Today, the Oversight Committee has a huge meeting, a hearing, in which they're going to talk about the Somali daycare fraud in Minnesota. Not sure if they'll get to Ohio or not. Hopefully they will, given the fact that Chairman Jordan, not chairman of that committee, but chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and Representative Jordan, who sits on oversight, will be on with us today to tell us what that's all about. So Jack Windsor and Jim Jordan are our guests today. Welcome to our other guests, our regular guests, our most important guests, our viewers, and our chatters. I know this is early for a lot of folks. You were liking the 10 o'clock time slot that we were doing, 10 until noon. We've got to do the 7 to 9 thing now. So if you're up early, God bless you and thank you for that. Do me a favor. cock-a-doodle-doo your ass into somebody else's ear, okay? Wake them up and get them in here with us, all right? Be somebody's alarm clock. That's all I'm going to tell you. I don't care whose phone it is you're going to ring right now, but ring the phone and tell them to turn on, strictly speaking, Unfiltered on Rumble. That's the way this is supposed to be. I think we're also pushing out to, let me double check. I think we're pushing out to the YouTube channel and to the Facebook page as well this morning. Not sure how I'm going to roll with that going forward, like I said, because I want to try to migrate everybody into the Rumble channel so that you can be a part of this crowd and also to be a part of the chat, which is which is perhaps the most fun part of the show. The chat is the call, the phone call version of terrestrial talk radio. You don't talk here, but you get in the chat and you talk to me and you talk with everybody else as well. So let me have a little look-see into the chat room. I am Roz was first in this morning. Buckeye Therese jumped right in. Joanne is there. SRL is there. I got B Morgan up in the house. I got Lisa 94. I've got Fred Frog, who has stopped in. Jansky is up and at it. Yo Jimbo, politically incorrect mechanic, who just jumps in immediately and says Republicans are a rudderless party. All right. I may not disagree with that. I may not disagree with that. Sad to say. Victor Sim, good morning. New American Media, Brian, good morning. Has everyone smashed the like button? Yeah, smash it, break it, the hell with it. Pound it as hard as you can. And again, tell everybody else to do it too. Like I said, be somebody else's alarm clock too. Just send the link to somebody right now in your text message saying, hey, how come you're not in? Just, right click the URL and then copy it and send it to people in your email. I'm sorry. Well, you do emails, but particularly your text window right now. Thank you to everybody who's into support. Thanks to obviously everybody who is financially supporting the channel. If you are so moved at some point today and you want to drop a few bucks in the till, there's the Rumble Rant button down there at the bottom. And then, of course, you'll see going across the crawl at the bottom all of the other ways you can support this effort of ours. So I want, even though it's not, I've got a whole bunch of news stories that I wanted to hit this morning. President Trump said, we're taking the oil. Just made the announcement last night. Yeah, Venezuelan oil, we're getting 30, 40, 50 million barrels of ready to go Venezuelan oil coming on tankers to the United States. We're going to then sell it on the open market. He said, for the benefit of the Venezuelan people and for the benefit of the United States as well. This, of course, anything Donald Trump does sets the left on their head, just screaming and whining. But this has done exactly that. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. Google is censoring Nick Shirley. And that's, if you're still using Google Chrome or if you're still using the Google search engine, stop. Stop giving them freaking power. In all seriousness, don't do, and I know I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because YouTube, which I'm broadcasting on now, in addition to Rumble, against my better judgment, I think sometimes, because it's still Google. YouTube is owned by Google. But stop using their search engine and stop letting them get away with it. They're censoring Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley's name is one of the most popular names, trending names, if you will, in the United States in the last week, because he was the one who blew the lid off of the Somali daycare scandal in Minnesota and has us looking at all of these places here in Ohio too. You Google Nick Shirley if you're using Google, and it should be very, very clear. But they're burying his X account. They're burying, it has profiles of him by other people, and there's articles that come up and tell you who Nick Shirley is, and especially the negative ones. But his X account, which is the one that got over 150 million hits for that video about the Somalis, is buried. And they're your enemy. Just know that Google is the enemy. What else? Mehek Cook assaulted, as she's trying to expose and reporting on the Columbus fraud care, the Somali Columbus fraud care. The Hilton hotels, they tried to disenfranchise, if you will, or break off from the Minnesota Hilton that refused to let ICE agents, stay there because they were ICE agents. And now apparently they've doubled down, which I don't understand. I'll get into that as quickly as I can. Vivek Ramaswamy, as I said, has chosen Rob McCauley as his lieutenant governor and his running mate. And Vivek is going to have some questions to answer probably today at the announcement of this at Windows on the River it's in Cleveland at Windows. That's right. It's not in Strongsville. My mistake. I'm so used to him making appearances at Strongsville GOP. But he's going to have to answer some questions about the fact that he has been endorsed by the Somali Chamber of Commerce in the state of Ohio. It wasn't recently, after all of this has been exposed, but back in February, this is resurfaced now. Vivek was endorsed by the Somali Chamber of Commerce. That is going to be something. Is he going to disavow now because of all of this? How's he going to react to it? I have no idea. But it's something we should kick around and we'll talk about. HHS, Health and Human Services, have removed 4 more vaccines from the childhood immunization list. And they did something else too yesterday, or I'm sorry, it was announced yesterday. That might have happened on Monday, but anyway, Health and Human Services also. I'm trying to find the story here, but I believe they denied funding to certain states because of the scandal, because of the welfare fraud scandal. And I'm trying to find the specific story right now, and I'm unable to find it at the moment. That's okay. We'll get there eventually. But what I want to do to start the show for this first now about 15 minutes left that we have before I bring in Jack Windsor is I want to share with you a little bit of what the White House shared yesterday, because yesterday was the 5th anniversary of January 6th and the protests. All right. The riots, they became riots. It was never an insurrection. And I want to be very, very clear about how we phrase that. It was never an insurrection, but it was a protest that became a riot. In large part because I still believe of the agents provocateur, the feds that were in the crowd that were pushing and I don't want to say coercing, but really, really trying to shove people into the Capitol to try to create as much chaos as possible. And chaos did ensue. There's no mistake about it. And some people did some things on that day they should not have done. There's no mistake about that. But writ large, the huge picture is that Trump supporters were there to peacefully protest, just as he asked them to do. And they were not armed, any of them. And none of them killed anybody. Some of them got killed by Capitol Police. And the question about who's to blame for all of it, of course, has been, a discussion point for the last 5 years. Well, the White House official website has decided we're going to make that announcement 5 years later about who's to blame for everything. And they put this, you can see it on your screen right now. They put this entire piece together to commemorate 5 years and to try to clarify the record. So as you can see, I'm going to scroll through this and I'm going to read some of this to you. All right. And we're going to play some of the videos too, because I think it's really, really important. This is the White House official website as of yesterday. President Trump took decisive action to pardon January 6 defendants who were unfairly targeted, overcharged, and used as political examples. They were not protected by the leaders who failed them. They were punished to cover incompetence. On his first day back in office, January 20th, President Trump issued sweeping blanket pardons and commutations for nearly 1,600 patriotic Americans prosecuted for their presence at the Capitol. Many mere trespassers or peaceful protesters treated as insurrectionists by the weaponized Biden DOJ. He fully pardoned most, commuted sentences, and ordered immediate release of those still imprisoned, ending years of harsh solitary confinement, denied due process, and family separation for exercising their First Amendment rights. Since January 6, 2021, Nancy Pelosi has spent over 3 years and nearly $20 million in taxpayer dollars on her partisan select committee, producing a scripted TV spectacle to fabricate an insurrection narrative and pin all the blame on President Trump. Video and audio recordings, including unaired HBO footage from her own daughter, show Nancy Pelosi repeatedly acknowledging responsibility for the catastrophic security failures, admitting, "We have totally failed, and I take full responsibility for not having the National Guard pre-deployed, despite intelligence warnings and President Trump's offers of troops that were ignored under her leadership as Speaker." The Democrats masterfully reversed reality after January 6th, branding peaceful patriotic protesters as insurrectionists and framing the event as a violent coup attempt orchestrated by Trump, despite no evidence of armed rebellion or intent to overthrow the government. In truth, it was the Democrats who staged the real insurrection by certifying a fraud-ridden election, ignoring widespread irregularities, and weaponizing federal agencies to hunt down dissenters, all while Pelosi's own security lapses invited the chaos they later exploited to seize and consolidate power. This gaslighting narrative allowed them to persecute innocent Americans, silence opposition, and distract from their own role in undermining democracy. And as you can see here, there's the quote that Nancy Pelosi actually made subsequent to all of this, taking responsibility. But we don't want to just hear it. We want to see it.
We have responsibility.
Excuse me. We don't want to just read it. We want to see and hear it.
Terry, we did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
I take responsibility, she said, when nobody's looking and she's not in front of a microphone and when she's not in front of the select committee. I take responsibility in the back of a car, recorded by her daughter, which is extraordinary. By the way, watching her try to talk through her, the muffled, performative mask that she was wearing is just a reminder of how insane that entire time was. But Nancy Pelosi admitted it. She should have had them there, and she takes responsibility. But then publicly, she says Trump never asked for it. Why are you here? Why are you asking questions that are Republican talking points as opposed to being a real journalist? Well, how about the fact that you admitted that you should not have, you should have allowed the National Guard to be stationed and mobilized to protect, because there were going to be protests, and with protests come what in America? Counter protesters. You should have had them there and ready to go. No, bottom line. So the White House, again, as a part of this January 6th anniversary, also put this little timeline up here that I want to take you through, at least a portion of. It's 24 minutes after now. I've got Jack Windsor in about 6, 7, 8 minutes. Talk about what he found in Columbus yesterday. But here we go. I want to share as much of this with you as I can. President Trump invites Americans to D.C. President Trump invited patriotic Americans to Washington, D.C. on January 6th for a peaceful and historic protest against certifying the stolen 2020 election. He emphasizes standing for election integrity while calling for peaceful demonstrations. Hundreds of thousands respond to the call to show support. President Trump delivers powerful speech at the Ellipse. We all saw this, in which he told everybody to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard, stresses the need to fight for the country through strength and determination, explicitly calling for peaceful protest. The crowd responds with massive enthusiasm. Patriots marched to the Capitol. Following the speech, the massive crowds peacefully marched down Constitution Avenue to the Capitol to protest the certification of the fraudulent election. The march is orderly and spirited, with flags, signs, and chants supporting President Trump. You know what they didn't have with them? Guns, knives, bayonets. They weren't there to overthrow the government. They were a bunch of freaking grandmas carrying flags. Next, security failures. Capitol Police aggressively fired tear gas, flashbangs, and rubber munitions into crowds of peaceful protesters, injuring many and deliberately escalating the tensions. Video evidence shows, and I've shown movies of this or scenes from movies of this. Some of the movies put together on January 6th, documentary, of course, are just unbelievable when you see what was done inside that crowd and in that Capitol area. Video evidence shows officers inexplicably removing barricades, opening the Capitol doors, and even waving attendees inside the building. It doesn't sound like it's an insurrection. It doesn't sound like it's a coup that's being fought by officers. Actions that facilitated entry while simultaneously deploying violent force against others. These inconsistent and provocative tactics turned a peaceful demonstration into chaos. President Trump urges calm as the events unfold. President Trump repeatedly calls for peace, tweeting support for law enforcement and releasing a video telling supporters go home in peace while reiterating love for them and election concerns. He consistently promotes nonviolence despite the attack on attendees and the emotions running high. Leaked footage captured by Nancy Pelosi's daughter shows the speaker in a rage during the evacuation, furiously admitting, "I take responsibility." That's what I just showed you. Ashley Babbitt was murdered in cold blood by Capitol Police Lieutenant Michael Byrd. She was unarmed. She was not attacking anybody. She wasn't rushing anybody. She was getting pressed by a huge crowd up behind her, up against a door, and had to climb through a broken window just to relieve, the crushing situation she found herself in. And a guy shot her as she came through the window. Michael Byrd did. Mike Pence refused to act. He had the opportunity to return the disputed electoral states to state legislatures for a review, chose not to. Stolen election was certified. I'm just going to pass by here some of these. President Trump was then silenced. He wasn't allowed to talk about any of these things. Despite his call for peaceful protest on January 6th, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and the other platforms colluded to ban the President of the United States from being heard, saying he incited the violence that day in a blatant act of election interference. Not his, but the platforms, the social media platforms. Mass arrests of patriotic protesters. We all know how this went down. The DOJ launched a coordinated nationwide dragnet, arresting over 1,500 people just for being there that day, some just for being in D.C., pre-dawn raids, some just for trespassing or being a part of the parade. Hundreds were held as political prisoners for years in harsh conditions, denied speedy trials, and given lengthy sentences in what is considered an unprecedented and diabolical weaponization of federal law enforcement. Then the January 6th Select Committee was exposed, her handpicked committee, in which the first two names on the Republican side of their appointed members of that committee, Jim Jordan, who will join me later this morning, and Representative Jim Banks, were denied. Nancy Pelosi said, nope, pick somebody else. So the Republicans said, fine, if we can't have who we want on, then kiss our asses. We won't even have any membership on that committee. The only membership on that committee who were Republicans were rhinos and Trump haters like Liz Cheney. That's the reality of it. So it was a completely ridiculous, non-bipartisan, or I guess we'll just call it a partisan select committee. Weaponized prosecutions against President Trump in the summer of 2024. Obviously, FBI entrapment operation was exposed. And finally, lawfare failed. President Trump emerged triumphant, fueled by unbreakable resolve, the fierce loyalty of his courageous family, team, and patriotic Americans, and God's unmistakable grace. He delivered a landslide 2024 victory and reclaimed the White House in the greatest comeback in American history. Now, we'll scroll down to a little bit further, because this is a really important part. The videos, I mean. President Trump corrected an historic wrong, freeing Americans who were unjustly punished and restoring fairness under the law. There's a lengthy proclamation that the White House published for everyone to see on the White House website, which we're sharing with you now. I guess I could read the summary of it. With his triumphant return to the White House, President Trump wasted no time righting one of the darkest wrongs in modern American history. On Inauguration Day 2025, he issued sweeping pardons and commutations for the vast majority of January 6 defendants, patriotic citizens who had been viciously overcharged, denied due process, and held as political hostages by a vengeful regime. These Americans, many guilty of nothing more than peacefully protesting a disputed election, were finally freed from years of cruel imprisonment, restored to their families, and exonerated. In one bold stroke, Trump ended the nightmare of weaponized justice and delivered long overdue vindication of those betrayed by the very leaders sworn to protect them. Unfortunately, These 9 beautiful and courageous souls lost their lives, 4 on January 6th itself and 5 by their own hand, while enduring merciless persecution for the simple act of peacefully walking through the Capitol to protest a stolen election. And you see their names there. Many of them have become familiar to a lot of us over the years. Matthew Perna jumps out for his particular horrific situation that led to suicide. Ashley Babbitt, of course, was killed on the scene. So was Roseanne Boylan. So these individuals, of course, need to be remembered as well. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of this, or scroll past a lot of this. The U.S. House interim report, we all know what it said. We all lived through this nonsense. But this is where I want to just kind of hammer home because of the way this whole thing was treated by the media. Here on January 7th of 2026, we're looking back at January 6th of 2021, because this is how the media wanted to portray it. This is the BBC's deceptive edit, which is very much keeping in tune with what American media like CBS and others did. They aired this edited version of President Trump's speech at the Ellipse.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down.
Obviously, I'm stating the obvious here for the sake of being thorough. They made it sound like Trump was saying we're going to walk down the Capitol and fight. And if he had said that, it could be argued, even though the word fight is used in a figurative sense by every politician ever anywhere. Kamala Harris running for president, when we fight, we win. Is she saying go fight and beat people up? No. But every politician everywhere has said, we're going to fight. We're going to fight. That doesn't mean physically. So even though that could have been taken figuratively at the time, he didn't say that. He didn't say we're going to walk down to the Capitol and we fight. He could have meant that figuratively, fight with our voices. But he didn't say that at all. He said we're going to walk to the Capitol and what? Here's the real video.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
That's just part of it. Obviously, the full speech or the full video is over here on the left side. I don't have time to play the whole thing, but and this is, again, sharing from the White House website. We all remember what he said that. He said, we're going to walk to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave men and women, not all of them, because he knew not all of them were sympathetic to the cause, which is to have a further audit of the states that were in question. They had a lot of questions, raised on election day. We're going to need a full audit here before we can certify the election. He said, not all of them are going to do that, but he said, we're going to cheer on our brave men and women in Congress. And then he said, not all of them, but then he said, we're going to peacefully and patriotically make our voices heard. What does making our voices heard mean? It means chanting. It means protesting, like everyone does. It means go out there and make them hear you inside. Rock the Capitol with your voices. Let them know that you do not support this travesty of justice, I guess. This completely rigged and stolen election. Let them know that you're not standing for it. That's essentially what President Trump wanted. Peacefully and patriotically be heard. And then when they show up there, and then again, all of the agents provocateur, dozens of federal agents in the crowd, you got Capitol Police on rooftops. And as soon as things started to get stirred up and out of control, they start firing weapons. They start firing rubber bullets and beanbags and, why am I blanking? Pepper gas and all sorts of things like that. In order to create more chaos. And then, of course, when people are under attack, what are they going to do? They're going to fight back. And they did. But nobody was armed. Nobody showed up there with knives, guns, clubs, or anything that would lead to somebody thinking this is a coup d'etat. They're trying to overthrow the government. They're trying to literally have an insurrection against the government. That narrative was bull crap when it started. It's bull crap 5 years on. And I was just so glad to see the White House stepping up there and saying what needed to be said. reminding everybody of exactly how things went down, as opposed to the way that the media, like the BBC clip and CBS and others, wanted you to believe things went down. So that's yesterday the left engaged in some performative art bull crap, standing there with a candlelight vigil. And I was thinking about that too. Candlelight vigils are, I remember going to a candlelight vigil with my guest who's going to come on here in a second, Jack Windsor. Actually, we both spoke at a candlelight vigil for Charlie Kirk. Typically these things are for people who have been killed, people who have lost their lives, or people who died naturally, but this is just a commemoration of their lives. And what's the candlelight vigil for, left? Why were the Senate Democrats? Did you see this? Can I share this real quick? The Democrats, I shouldn't even give them the time of day. I'm not going to do that. But the leftists did a candlelight vigil in the Senate. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this vigil for? Because the only people who died that day died at the hands of Capitol Police, who were acting on orders from Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, who got overly aggressive, shooting, attacking. Some of the scenes of the people being attacked on that day are just horrific to watch. But who's the vigil for? They want you to believe, to this day they're selling the lie that Trump supporters on January 6th murdered, killed Capitol Police officers. Never happened. None of those things ever happened. They're going to continue to try to preach the lie that they were telling, that Brian Sicknick was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. Brian Sicknick was caught on video once the video was released, finally. Kevin McCarthy released a lot of that video. Once it was released, there's Brian Sicknick hours after he was supposedly beaten to death, walking around and talking to people in the Capitol, in a very, very calm place in the middle of the Capitol, for crying out loud. So, they still try to tell that lie. Brian Sicknick ultimately took his own life days later, but, it had nothing to do with what was done on the day of January 6th. So the lies and the distortions and the exaggerations and the claims of insurrection, the claims of, coup d'etat, all of that bull crap we've been fed for the last 5 years needs to be exposed. And I've been doing what I could for my part, to expose that through the last several years. I've had on filmmakers, documentarians, people, J6ers who were actually held in the gulags. I've talked to, members of Congress who were there that day. I've talked to as many people as possible to get the truth out there. And fortunately, there are I'm assuming thousands of people like me, either doing radio shows or, in this case, podcasts, who are trying to make sure that the truth is known, because that's exactly what we have to do. And that's exactly why we're having this show, by the way. We've got to share the truth, not just on that, but on everything. All right. I mentioned the name Jack Windsor in our intro. And so let's, without further ado, bring in our good friend from the Ohio Press Network. Jack Windsor is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Ohio Press Network. He's also the host of the Windsor Report in Columbus, Ohio. And Jack, I've got you greenlit there, but I don't see you. How come I can't? Now I can see you. There he is. Jack Windsor, good morning, my friend. Welcome back. How are you? Yeah, I think your camera is in need of a little boost as well, because we're very pixelated there. We got to see your smiling face.
Yeah, man. I'll try to fix that. Dim light this morning. I'm joking, kind of. I hit snooze a couple extra times this morning. It's been quite a couple of days. I took a vacation last week with my family, and then I came back to an extended time on the radio show, followed by a full day in Columbus with former Major Leaguer John Rocker, which I know we'll talk about. Yeah, it's drinking from a fire hose, man.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what the news is like right now. It is coming at us full speed, no question about it. And sometimes it is too much to handle. It's a good metaphor. Before we get into John Rocker, which is just all kind of hilarious, and I will show this just super quick, only because we're talking about it. Let's see, where's John? Here he is. There's a picture of John Rocker holding his little baby, baby LeBron, that he was trying to get into daycare in Columbus at some of the Somali fraud centers. And he was out there working with Jack Windsor yesterday, and we're going to talk about that with Jack in just a moment or two here. But Jack, before we get into the investigations that people like you and John and Matt Cook and obviously Nick Shirley started up in Minnesota, before we get into all of that, the main reason I messaged you last night was to say, all right, Vivek has made his call. Vivek Ramaswamy has chosen Rob McCauley, the Ohio Senate president, to be his running mate, to be his lieutenant governor. And I described it as being a bit of a contentious pick. I think there is a split in Ohio conservatives, particularly conservative activists. Some say he's fine. That's a good call. Some say he is as rhino-y as they come, and conservatives are not happy. They were looking for Vivek to go with someone a little bit stronger on that side of things, a little bit more to the liking of MAGA and America First, in a state that President Trump has dominated for, 3 consecutive election cycles now. So I know you've talked to Rob McCauley on a fairly regular basis down there in Columbus. Give me your first blush reaction and your analytical reaction to this election.
My first blush reaction is I understand the pick, and Rob McCauley mentioned has been on my show several times. We've talked. I understand his strengths within the conservative movement and his perceived weaknesses, but it makes sense to me why Vivek Ramaswamy chose him. And I'll get into a little bit of his background here in just a minute. But Bob, when I looked at it, I thought, okay, that makes sense because Rob McCauley is the Senate president. He's viewed by many as an adept lawmaker, somebody who understands the art of politics. I mean, politics is about decision making, and sometimes you get a little, sometimes you give a little, and that might be some of the issue that the farther end of the spectrum people have is, has he given too much sometimes in order to get other things down the line? But to me, it's because Vivek Ramaswamy has, on the campaign trail, talked very boldly about what he would like to do as governor of Ohio. Mm-hmm. And in order to do the things that he wants to do, which is what I think we learned in Trump 1.0, right? You can't executive order your way to sustainable change. You have to have the lawmakers on your side. And so I view Rob McCauley being a solid pick from the vantage point of he knows the ins and outs of the state house. He has solid relationships with Republicans in both the Senate and the House, and would be somebody as lieutenant governor that can lobby and work with the lawmakers to get laws on the books so that Vivek Ramaswamy isn't throwing out all these executive orders that somebody down the line would, be able to come in and change a little more easily. McCauley is Napoleon, Ohio. Now, by the way, there was a lot of speculation, Bob, that McCauley was going to run for Congress in District 9 against Marcy Kaptur.
Yeah.
And I got information last week on Friday that he was making phone calls and telling donors and people close to him that he was not going to run for Congress. And the same day, Vivek Ramaswamy mentioned that he was going to be in Cleveland on the 7th. And I went, okay, 1 + 1 likely equals 2 in this situation, and McCauley's going to be his LG. Now, we also heard a rumor that former statewide office winner and 2022 U.S. Senate candidate Josh Mandel was on that short list. And a lot of folks felt going into yesterday that it was going to be either McCauley or Mandel. And the appeal with Mandel was, based on my understanding, he had won statewide office. He can raise a lot of money. And so for those two reasons, he was on the short list. But McCauley, he's been in the House from 2015 to 2017. As I mentioned, Senate president. He has his JD from the University of Toledo. He's a graduate of the Ohio State University. And, he's really prioritized tax reform, government deregulation, school choice. And I was trying to think about some of the pieces of legislation that he's sponsored that are, maybe higher on the attention or higher in the minds of people who pay attention to politics. And he sponsor of, I believe it was Senate Bill 23 in 2019. That is the heartbeat bill, which was a very popular piece of legislation. And Senate Bill 1 in 2025, which, as you know, retooled higher education, had a lot to do with making sure DEI programs were not made mandatory. And then Senate Bill 311 in 2020 that tried to repeal COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. Those are some of the more significant things that I can recall at the top of my head. So that's why I think Rob McCulley was chosen. I think he is somebody that's viewed as an adept lawmaker that can help Ramaswamy make a lot of the changes he's talking about making on the campaign trail.
It's a lot there. Go back to Mandel for a moment. How did he become a consideration? I mean, I have not seen nor heard a peep from Josh Mandel since he tried to fight Mike Gibbons on a debate stage, and then ultimately ended up losing in the primary. I mean, Jack, you know this. When people run for office, particularly if you've already held office, and he was a former state treasurer, you're actively involved in the political orbit. You're commenting on things. Something happens in Ohio, something happens. I mean, you see comments all of the time. Ken Blackwell is as an example, former Secretary of State, former treasurer. Ken Blackwell ran for governor. He is all over the place. I mean, and I'm not saying everybody has to be as active as Ken. He's fantastic. But everybody has at least something. There's a visibility. Josh Mandel has ghosted the world, at least the political world, since he left that race. And when I heard the same thing you are talking about now, that he was to the final two, reportedly, for Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm thinking, how the hell did that how was Josh Mandel even on Vivek's radar? And why would he be on Vivek's radar? It's not like he's been out there actively, pushing and promoting some of the same agenda items that Vivek has. It's not like Mandel during the presidential cycle came out and said, go President Trump. I'm a supporter. I'm MAGA. I mean, nothing, absolute, radio silence from him. So how did he suddenly burst onto the scene and be a dark horse candidate to actually be the running mate for Vivek? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's a great question. You'll remember when Bernie Moreno was running for U.S. Senate against Sherrod Brown, Trump visited Dayton, Ohio. I was at that event, and I remember that was the first time I had seen Josh Mandel in maybe a year and a half or 2 years, and he was in the crowd. I got to talk with him a little bit, and that's when my antenna went up. I went, okay, it's a Saturday. You don't just show up in Dayton, Ohio, for an event if you're not plugged in somehow. But back then, he worked for Club for Growth, which is a prolific fundraising group, and I think Josh Mandel is, first of all, covering him in 2022 very much in depth. He's a very strategic man. And after he lost that race, I think he went radio silent on purpose, because a lot of people, if you remember, were saying, what's his future? What is he even going to do? Well, he took the pause that I think in his mind he thought he would need before stepping back into the public spotlight as a candidate. And he chose to go and work with Club for Growth. And during that time, as you can imagine, developed, I'm sure, relationships with very significant donors and donor networks. And I think that really is a lot of it. I think that his ability to fundraise, coupled with the fact, as you mentioned, that he was a state treasurer, which means that he has some name recognition. And in fact, Bob, you'll remember in that 2022 race, some people speculated that Gibbons was up before J.D. Vance got the Trump nod endorsement. J.D. was maybe in third place. And so it was Mandel and Gibbons that were kind of neck and neck in that race. So he had significant presence in the Buckeye State, all over the state, as recent as late 2022. I think those are the two reasons. But look, I would be lying if I didn't admit I was shocked too. I heard about a week and a half ago that he was on the final list, and I went, okay, wait a minute, let me understand why this pick may be made. And that's what I came up with. He can raise money, and he has significant name recognition. But you raise a great point.
I everything you said I get, and I still don't get it. Vivek doesn't need anybody else to help raise money. I think the numbers just came in. He raised like nearly $1 billion. It was like a new Ohio record, fundraising record. Some reported like $980 million on hand or something like that that have been raised. And again, I don't think Josh Mandel exited that Senate race the last time he was really seen by the public. in good terms, or on good terms. Again, it was ugly for him at the end. It was very, very ugly. Again, he nearly punched a 70-some-year-old man, on the stage, and turned the entire campaign into, I'm a Marine. I'm a Marine. You can't question me. I'm a Marine. Well, what do you have to say about this? I'm a Marine. It didn't go well. And I like Josh. I did. And, I think I'm sure I still do as a person, but as a candidate, no. It didn't do anything for me. So now here's Rob McCauley. And of all of the things that you just said, and again, there was a lot, I want to talk about his potential run for that 9th congressional district seat, because he was largely in charge of the new district redraw, and a lot of people believe he drew that district more favorably for him when he decided to run, because, like you said, he's from Napoleon. And so he was going to run in the 9th, and then, in return for drawing a district more favorably there that might boot Marcy Kaptur out, he gave in to the Democrats, almost Blue 22 style. He gave in and gave them a much more favorable drawing in 13, which was going to be very, very winnable to get the most incompetent member of the Ohio delegation to Congress, Sykes, out. Amelia Sykes out, and instead it went from being like a +2, what should have been a +2 Republican, to being a +4 Democrat leaning district. Republicans down in Cincinnati also got stabbed by the lines that were drawn largely by Rob McCauley. And in a congressional situation where 1 or 2 votes could be the majority, 1 or 2 votes could be the margin of either having the majority or being in the minority in Congress, we should be a 13-2 state, maybe 12-3 at worst. Instead, it might be a 10-5 state. We may have given 2 or 3 congressional seats away because largely of what Rob McCauley did. I would like to know how the hell he is going to answer for that as lieutenant governor, and what Vivek is going to have to say about that tonight.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We were talking a lot about that on our show. I know you and I have talked about it a lot, the congressional map redraw. And the message I kept getting, and I'm not saying it's accurate or inaccurate or true, or, sometimes the fat lies are wrapped in a thin skin of truth. And in politics, it's really hard to discern. But what we heard when that map was drawn primarily was that if there wasn't some give, then Democrats would not approve it. And if they did not approve it, then they would put themselves in a position to be able to contest it in court. And then we would be back to where we were previously with the congressional maps, where it had to play out in the court system, the Ohio Supreme Court, maybe the U.S. Supreme Court, who knows? And so the idea was, can we give a little with the idea of getting Marcy Kaptur out of Congress? And I think they drew that district well enough. Now, there are some folks who go, even if Rob, and by the way, my understanding is it was the Trump administration who really wanted Rob McCauley in Washington, D.C., representing District 9. So I'm sure that there was some turmoil inside of him, combating the idea of, well, they really want me in Congress, but they also feel like they need me as lieutenant governor. And frankly, Bob, this is just pure speculation. I think that's probably why Mandel's name came up, because I think Rob McCauley might have been thinking about, do I want to go to Congress or do I want to be lieutenant governor? And so I think the ball was in his court on that. But the other thing to think about, even though he's not running in that district, you have Derek Marin, who is still in that primary, and Josh Williams, who I am utterly impressed with, and I think could certainly win that district as well significantly. Now, to your point, District 1 with Greg Landsman, I think there were people who were hoping that would be a little more favorable for the Republican side. I've talked with Brianna Filo. They still feel like it's potentially winnable for Republicans, but I was a little surprised too by Amelia Sykes. I thought she was beatable, and the way that my
easily
understanding is
with the way the map was before, absolutely beatable, and the projected drawing, absolutely. In fact, again, it would have been like a +2 district, which is amazing for the 13th. Kevin Coughlin would have won that, and that's why literally the day after this map was drawn, Kevin Coughlin suspended his campaign.
Right. So we'll see. They're going to pick up District 9, all things being equal. Maybe they have a fighter shot in District 1.
I wouldn't
with
say, by the
respect
way,
to,
I wouldn't just say that. I mean, you said that very directly. They're going to pick up District 9. You think that either Josh Williams or Derek Merrin is a shoe-in against Marcy Kaptur now?
uh, man, yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, I think Josh Williams is going to be hard to beat. I think he has an incredible personal story. To me, he's doing all of the right things. He's written significant pieces of legislation that are meaningful, not just red meat stuff that you throw out there, but stuff that really aims at solving some problems. Derek Merrin is formidable too,
Including the
though.
daycare stuff, by the way. Josh was on where you are right
Yep.
now on this show last Wednesday, 1 week ago, and he was talking about exactly that. And he's literally authoring legislation to deal with the daycare problem and demanding more unannounced inspections and so on and so forth. I agree with you. Josh is one of my favorite people in Columbus right now, and has been for the last few years. And I think he's a phenomenal candidate. I see and hear very little from Derek Merrin, but my point being, as much as I like Josh, I'm a slave to history. Marcy Kaptur's been there for what, 429 years. I mean, she somehow manages to win again and again, despite district lines.
Yeah, she's kind of like a tree. You have to read the lines on her eyes to figure out how old she really is. It's incredible. But yeah, I think Republicans pick up that seat. They might have a fighter's chance against Sykes. They'd have to get somebody interesting. I nudged Frank LaRose once and I said, hey, that's your old stomping ground. You've won statewide. Why don't you go up there and run? He didn't take the bait. But so I don't know where we're going with it other than
well, the reason it
interesting
mattered to me is
scenario
because because Rob was at the center of all of this, and I will tell you this:
Yeah.
if we lose winnable seats that should have been ours in the state of Ohio, because again, we're a red-dominated state. We're not a conservative state, but we're red-dominated state. We should be a 13-2 or at least a 12-3 majority in the state. If we end up losing control of Congress by a vote or two, and it's because of Ohio, I'm not happy with the way put it to you this way. What did the Democrats do after the maps were agreed to? They freaking cheered. They were celebrating because they know they got a shot at winning more seats now than they really should in a state that is so red that 20 of the last 21 statewide elections have been won by Republicans. They had no claim to any more of a representation than they had, and they came away going, oh, gee, that was pretty doggone good. And that to me is not, again, if I was going to be at the event tonight, I would ask Rob McCauley that very question. What the hell? You made the Democrats, you gave them an opportunity here that they did not have in our state. And I would like to know why.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm interested in, and you may have more to talk about here on something else, but I'm interested in your take on Amy Acton's pick, David Pepper, the Democrat attorney from, I think, the Cincinnati, Ohio area, who was the Ohio Democrat Party chairman, I believe, from 2015 to 2020. And of course, that tenure was a little bit controversial because Democrats didn't do well. And just curious what you think about Acton's pick. Is that indicative of the fact that they might have a shallow bench? Or I read some stuff on social media from people I respect in the political sphere who said, yeah, we better wake up. David Pepper is a force to be reckoned with. So I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I'm less interested, to be honest with you, in Pepper and that pick than I am just with the fact that nobody else is actually running in a primary against Amy Acton. I mean, is that a surrender? Or do they honestly think she's – what I mean by that, Jack, is Sherrod Brown could have run. As we know, he wants to go back in the Senate. Tim Ryan was a guy, who had won, and had big name recognition in the state of Ohio for Democrats. Amy Acton's not a politician. She's never run for office. She's never run for city council, a school board seat, anything. She's just, a doctor. I want to say just a doctor, but obviously in the former chairman of the Department of Health. And she was given carte blanche to destroy the state of Ohio, and she took full advantage of that and did it.
Yes, she did.
With the approval and the assent of Mike DeWine, who gave her that power. Why are the Democrats just locked in on her? Do they honestly think that she is a formidable enough opponent, or is it a surrender? We got to throw somebody's name up on the ballot. Let her do it. She's got no chance. I'm still failing to understand why we're going to have a primary, and whether it be Casey Putch or Heather Hill, there are going to be some people that Vivek Ramaswamy is going to have to talk about and deal with going into this whole thing. And the Democrats are just seem to be fine with like, yeah, okay, Amy wants it. Yeah, well, okay, Amy's our person. Nobody else. Don't even bother replying.
I'm going to just stick with what I said earlier, and I believe it in every part of me. They just don't have a bench. There's not a lot of talent on that side. They could run maybe Allison Russo, but she doesn't have the name recognition. I think it boils down to two things. Amy Acton is not Sherrod Brown. So you have, really there were three, right? Acton, Brown, and Tim Ryan. Those are the three that are, okay, there's enough name recognition there. They may be able to do something. That's just how shallow the bench is. Amy Acton has significant name recognition. People who are brain broken from COVID still love her because they bought into the lies, the pies, ties, and lies episodes with Governor Mike DeWine. But not having a primary, Bob, saves money. And it really just kind of allows the party to coalesce around one candidate. And they're going to need that. They're going to need every dollar they can get. They're going to need every ounce of energy they can get to win that race if they're going to win it. And I still think she loses by 8 points. Could be wrong.
I do too. I don't buy one of these polls that show them neck and neck. Not even one of them. I don't believe it for a second because I know how many millions of Ohioans were negatively impacted by her and revile her for that. Yeah. She may still have some support in the Democrat circles because of everything, but she did. She killed 4,000 Ohio businesses. She and Mike DeWine killed 4,000 businesses, and with them millions collectively of jobs. And so some businesses are still alive, but they're still swimming in red ink. 3 and 4 years after the decisions she made. School children who were denied an opportunity to actually be educated for a year and a half, almost 2 years, have never recovered. There are kids who've graduated high school not knowing anything, all because of the things she did, and all without medical justification. I'm sorry. I think she loses by closer to 10 points. We'll see. All right, Jack, I wanted to have you on for a second reason, as I mentioned in my introduction. In addition to talking about Vivek and Rob McCauley and that decision, I'm going to share this, and I'm going to ask you to tell us what in the living hell we are watching right now. So let's pop this up here. This is from Jack Windsor's X feed, which you should, of course, follow. And I'm going to let it play, and then you tell us what's going on here.
And maybe you can provide insight or information.
That's not your job. We have a license. Ask them, go to the online and ask our license. This is not your job. Get out of here.
No, it is my job to investigate the use of public funds.
Show me if you have evidence. I'm not going to give you any information. Get the fuck out.
By the way, was there like a beehive in the area or something? Was there a massive swarm of bees? Why is she wearing a beekeeper outfit? I don't understand.
I don't need permission. I'm a citizen of Ohio, and I'm a taxpayer, and I'm actually here to investigate a simply to ask you if you see.
I'm not the teacher. When I want to do my job, do your job. That's it.
What your impression is of the allegations.
They harassing only the African people. You see what happened to the media? They harassing us. I'm gonna give my lawyer. What you gonna do, guys?
Okay, so Jack, that beekeeper was big mad. She didn't like you asking questions. Who is she? Where is she? And where were you? And how in the hell did you end up with John Rocker there?
All right, man. I'll try to answer all of that. All of those questions. I was on East Dublin Granville Road in Columbus, which is really in the heart of what many would call the Somali community in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio has the second largest population of Somalis. They started coming, I want to say 30 years ago now. You'll remember there was a civil war in Somalia, which is on the eastern horn of Africa. Consequently, many of them were allowed to come to Ohio, Minnesota, because they were refugees in a civil war. Fast forward, after Nick Shirley did what he did in Minnesota, many people started raising their eyebrows and going, well, wait a minute. We're seeing some things like that here in Ohio. What's the difference? And so I was out yesterday visiting daycare centers, restaurants, grocery stores, and business malls in the Somali community. And the interesting thing is, first of all, I don't know who the woman is. She did not give me her name. She did not give me her position or title. But consistent with the a dozen or so sites that we popped in on yesterday, this daycare center that she came out of was one that had essentially the windows blacked out. It wasn't like they had black paper or paint, but they have these stickers and decals and other things. It's almost like the windows get wrapped. You know how they wrap vehicles
Yeah.
with certain advertising?
Yeah.
The windows were wrapped. You can't see in. And so I pushed the button and she stood. You could see her. She stood and she was gesturing, behind the door. Because there's little part right here. There's like a little foyer, and I looked and I could see her, and she's like hand gesturing. And I said, can you talk? I want to talk to you, Bob. My whole point. I want to make sure this is clear. Many people said, well, wow, you're kind of a weirdo to want to go into a daycare and see the kids. I said, no, that's not why I was there. And in fact, if folks would actually listen to the damn video instead of having a gut reaction because they've already picked a side in this battle. What you'll hear is a question that I asked everyone where we stopped, which is number one, do you get state funding? Number two, does the Department of Children and Youth stop here? Have they audited this place before? And what's your reaction to what we're seeing and hearing in the news cycle? Is there rampant fraud in this daycare industry? Is there rampant fraud that money is going from these non-government organizations to daycares, and somehow that money is getting over to these restaurants and these food supply companies? Because many times yesterday, when we stopped at several locations, you would have a daycare center for children, a daycare center for adults, and then you might have like an African market and then a restaurant. So there are allegations that the Somali men are practicing polygamy. They have multiple wives. Consequently, each of those wives.
But that's not their fault. They can't tell which woman is in their house because of how they're. I mean, when you can only see their eyes, they think it's their wife, and if it's oh crap, that's a different one. Sorry, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
No,
sorry. Am I making fun of the culture? You're diggity goddamn right. I am. I'm sorry. It is the subjugation of women. Their culture subjugates women and treats them like they're pack animals or breeders, and that's it. And I want to know where are the awfuls? Where are the affluent white female liberals, the feminists? Why aren't they coming down on these Somalis and these Muslim women who are forced to dress like that? They don't have rights. They can be beaten. They can be. We've got videos of them being beaten. I saw one of these Muslim dads holding his child while punching his wife, and she has to stand there and take blow after blow after blow, and she can do nothing about it. And she's covered head to toe, just like this one was. I'm sorry. I'm being very, very, very judgmental of their culture, and I don't care because they don't treat people right, and they believe in a doctrine that says kill. Kill or convert anybody who isn't one of you. And I'm sorry if I don't give a rat's ass about their culture. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, look, I can address that briefly, and then I'll go on and answer a couple of your other questions. We can talk about this for quite some time, I'm sure. But assimilation is, I want to be very clear about this. Assimilation is not white Christian nationalism. Assimilation is not xenophobic. Assimilation is not racist. Assimilation helps all parties involved. And I genuinely mean that. If you're coming to a country, I mean, if I go to, let me just keep it simple. If I go to Thanksgiving at a home, and when I walk in and I see a bunch of shoes at the door, do you know what I do? I take my damn shoes off because that's kind of the rule in that house.
Right. Well said.
Right? Because you go, okay, I'm going to respect the rules of this house. I don't necessarily take we do at my house, but some people would say, I don't necessarily take my shoes off in my house. That's why we vacuum. That's why we mop. Okay, great. But you know what? I'm a guest in this home. I'm going to take my shoes off because it's going to go better for me when I'm there. Because if you don't, what's going to happen? Somebody that lives in that house is going to look and go, you have mud on your shoes? You have dog poop on your shoes? What do you got, man? It's just relationships go better when you respect certain customs, rules, and norms. Hard stop. So when you come to this country, in order to enjoy the full benefit of being in America, you ought to assimilate. because America is a country that should be rule of law, that should be a place where people are here. I mean, you came here for a reason. And the reason that people come here, whether they realize it or not, is that we have a republic form of government, representative republic, constitutional republic form of government, and we have free markets. And if you can't respect fundamental aspects of that, there's a problem, because what you're going to do is you're going to disrupt the ability to integrate into the community. It's really that simple.
100% agree.
And so, yes, I struggle with the assimilation piece. I bigly, to steal Trump's word, bigly struggle with the absolute hypocrisy from the left. Absolute hypocrisy from the left. If conservative men dress their women covered head to toe, practiced polygamy, blatantly said that women don't have or deserve a seat at the table, abused them, can you imagine, Bob, what that would look like?
Well, obviously, they don't care about the hypocrisy. They live on the hypocrisy. It is a part of the leftist, ideological credo. What we say, do what we say, not what we do, and we will condemn you for that which we do. There's no question about that. I'm going to move along here a little bit, Jack, because I've got Congressman Jordan coming up in about 20 minutes. This is what I want to share next. This is former Major League Baseball star, all-star closer, former Cleveland Indian, John Rocker, hanging out with Jack Windsor and doing the investigative journalism thing. Let me give this a quick play.
Yes, another crazy day today. Did not disappoint. Almost got run off the road. Some verbal fisticuffs, a little bit, mainly on their part, telling us what we go do with and to ourselves. Quite an interesting / entertaining day. Stay tuned for the full video. It's going to be eye-opening.
All right, Jack, how did you end up with John Rocker? John Rocker, baseball player, lives in Florida, flies up to Columbus to do a little investigative journalism with you. Give us the backstory here.
Yeah, so this was a real easy layup for me, Bob. I was in Florida, Orlando, Florida, at Universal Studios with my wife, Whitney, my daughter, Eva Grace, my bonus kids, Addison and Brody, and trying to unplug for a while, though you called me on it, and I'm glad you did. You said, you're supposed to not be working. It looks like you're working more now.
You were more active. You
were
work. On social. You were more active on stories that were going on than you are when you're in Columbus.
Well, so here's the deal. When you stand in line 2 hours at a time for a ride, you have a lot of time. So I'm scrolling and I'm sharing and I'm writing. And I got a ton of text messages. I still wanted to have a pulse on what was going on because I knew Ramaswamy was going to soon announce his LG and Acton and all these other things, right? A lot going on. The Somali stuff broke, and I thought, wow, I gotta follow this stuff now. I got a text from a guy. Actually, sorry, it was a direct message, and he said, "Hey, I've loved your stuff since COVID. I have a bail bond company in Columbus, and John Rocker announced he's going to come to Columbus." He said, so I sent John Rocker a message and said, "Hey, when you come, please stop by. I'm a huge baseball fan. I loved you when you were a player." And apparently Rocker sent this gentleman a message back and said, "Who do you know in Columbus?" And this guy hands down goes, "There's one guy. It's Jack Windsor. I'll connect you." His agent reached out to me, and the rest is history. So the last couple days there, I was figuring out how I was going to come back to an expanded radio show and do, a full day of on the ground, boots on the ground, gumshoe investigative work with Major League Baseball hero, rock star to some,
public enemy to others,
disliked to many.
Yeah. Some people, because he in his post baseball career, I think it was toward the end of his career, he went on a few rants that rubbed some people the wrong way, and has been villainized by some. But he's obviously on the right side of this.
He is, and I'm going to say this, Bob. Sorry to drop the F-bomb. 0 fucks given by John Rocker. Doesn't give a fuck. He's John Rocker. And that's it. And so it was really interesting because, my approach, I'm a little mouthy. I'm a little bombastic at times. I'm not John Rocker. And so it was kind of a cool dynamic. You know, I gathered a lot of information and put together the itinerary for where we were going to go, why we were going to go, set up some interviews. And by the way, there will be a probably 30 to 40 minute kind of documentary video released that shows what we ran into. But it was surreal, man. If you would have asked me back when he played for the Indians, say circa 2001, you ever think you're going to spend a day with John Rocker investigating Somalis in Columbus, Ohio? That was not on my bingo card.
No, I don't think they print those bingo cards. I don't think.
No. So it was surreal. But I love spending time with him because, and I'm not going to talk about it now. I'll talk about it another time. I get John Rocker. I get him. I understand him now. I loved his piss and vinegar when he played. As I said, there 0 F's given when he played. And to me, he was one of the biggest badasses in reliever closer history in Major League Baseball. You know, it would have been interesting to see. You know, he struggled with some injuries. So, you know, some people say he talked his way out of Major League Baseball, but he also had some injuries. But you probably remember him the way that I do, man. He plays some Twisted Sister, I Want to Rock, and he sprints out of the bullpen. And the place goes ape shit crazy because they're like, John Rocker's in, he's going to save this game. You know, and he just kind of has the same passion and energy. So that was entertaining. And he said it several times yesterday. He said, you're going to do the play-by-play. I'm going to do the color commentary. And boy, did he. He did some funny stuff.
Actually, that's the perfect role for him and for you in that little pairing that you guys had. I don't know if you can see your screen right now, Jack, but this is just a little bit of John Rocker's Twitter page, his X page. If this offends you, I don't care. Speak English. Spot on. I love every bit of that. So this is a fantastic thing. And it's so cool that you got to hang around with him and that he was coming to Columbus and looking for a guide and looking for somebody to help him get some of this information out there. So he's got a massive following there, 320,000 Twitter followers, so X followers. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the full report that you guys do. And Jack, I've got time for about one more question here. And I want to pivot to somebody else who was out there doing what you were doing. And I don't know if you guys were in the same place or maybe if you followed one another to different places, either knowingly or unknowingly. But this is, hold on one second. Let me make sure I'm doing this correctly. This is Mehek Cook, who was on my program 2 weeks ago. And we were talking a little bit about this. And doggone it, I'm sorry. I've got to push all of the right buttons here to make sure that this comes up properly. Here we go. So this is Mehek Cook, and she is, again, she is a pundit. She is a commentator and a journalist, and she is out there doing some of what you and John Rocker were doing, going business to business to try to expose the Somali fraud in Columbus, Ohio. And here's what happened to her, Jack. I want to find out if you crossed paths with her and then also what your thoughts are on what happened here.
Get back! Get back! Get back!
Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
Get back!
Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
Get back! Get back! Get back!
Holy shit, he just pushed me. I'm calling the police.
Wait. Don't call the police.
Did you see that?
Yeah. All right. So, Mehek, what just happened?
He just freaking pushed me. I just walked in there and he just started pushing me and screaming, "Get back." I'm calling the police.
As you can see, folks, all we did was go in. We were going to ask some questions. And we were attacked here at Jubba Daycare, 614-269-7042, right here in Columbus. All we did was walk in the door. You saw the man come out. He grabbed a hold of Mehek, tried pushing her, and that's how fast things happen. That's how screwed up this place is right now, is these people are all about being violent. We didn't do anything wrong. It's a business. It's right here.
All right, Jack Windsor, tell me what you know or don't know about what happened there to Mehek.
Yes. So the guy that you just saw in the video, the guy by the name of Chad Canton, I met him yesterday. He was accompanied by Mehek Cook and Walter Kurt, who is a Springfield, Ohio guy who has much acclaim on X. He also does some investigative reporting and deep dive stuff. I was able to connect with Chad and with Walter yesterday. In fact, Mehek Cook reached out to me before John Rocker's crew and said, "Hey, we need to partner on this." And I said, "Hey, I'm not going to be back boots on the ground until the 5th." So she went ahead and got a head start, kind of built that team with as I said, Chad Canton and Walter Kurt, and they had already gotten a head start on what they were doing. But yesterday was our day in the field, so we did meet up with them and talk about that at another time. But what you just saw was Mehek Cook attempting to walk into, my understanding is there's multiple things going on in that location, but I believe it is a home health agency. And so that is one of the other businesses that we were told to look into, that business model, the home health agency.
This particular one, are we talking about the one that we just watched?
Yeah.
No, that one is Jubba Daycare. That one's not the home health. That one says Jubba Daycare. At least I'm assuming daycare means what it sounds like. It's a kids center, not the home health. But I do know the home health businesses and the transportation businesses are also rife with fraud, Somali fraud. They're running those things and having providing no actual services to any actual people as well. But this particular one was, it says Jubba Daycare that they were walking into.
Yeah. So daycare, children, daycare, adult, link to, I should have said it that way.
Okay.
Home health. So,
Okay.
that's where it toggles over, like adult daycare. You can bring in adults that, if you need some sort of respite as a care provider,
Right.
Assuming it's a legitimate business model. But so here's the question. I mean, here's the $40 million question, $250 million question. When you go to these places, we dropped in on a dozen yesterday, you see enrolling now. That's the message. Kids 6 months to 12 years old, or 12th grade. I'm sorry, 12 years old, not 12th grade. And so you have one sign that says enrolling now. And then many of the places we went to also had a sign next to it that said no trespassing. And so you go, okay, so if you're open for business and you're enrolling now, do you just consistently attack people like that when they walk in the door? That to me, that is the overarching message I got yesterday. Words and actions are a barometer, Bob, and what people say and how they act are indicative of what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know many businesses that have no trespassing signs right on the front of their door when they also say that they're enrolling kids. That's just kind of mixed signals to me. And I don't know many people who come at you like a bat out of hell
Exactly.
and push you out of the way when you're trying to go in the door.
I mean, why wouldn't there be a, hi, can I help you?
Right.
Oh, what, you're here to do what? Or even if you know what they're, because you're watching, this going on nationally, even if you know what they're there to do, you say, hi, I'm assuming you're here to inquire. Can I answer any questions for you? In other words, if you were a parent in the parking lot thinking about, oh, here's a daycare center, I've got to start a job on Monday, I need to have somebody watch my kids, I'm going to go check this place out. When you see bat out of hell dude come out, get out of here, you thinking about dropping your kid off there? If you see the beekeeper woman there, are you dropping your kid off there? If you don't see any sign of other children, if you don't see a play area, if you don't see, if they won't see, because most daycare centers, you walk into the, foyer area and you go immediately into an office to see the director or the, the people who run it and so on. And the kids are separated down to another area, but then they have a play area, a reading area, a sleeping area, and all the rest. And if you don't see those things, are you dropping your kid off in a place that looks like a warehouse with a bunch of potholed, asphalted, empty parking lots in front of it? I mean, who the freaking hell do they think they're kidding, Jack? It's infuriating, but go ahead and give you the final word on this.
Yeah. So two things. Again, I hate to be like Captain Obvious here, but Bob, what if that was a MAGA t-shirt and hat shop and the guy that came out was a white Republican and he pushed a brown skinned, Democrat woman?
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck.
What the hell are we doing here? How? And there are people like, well, yeah, if you came into my daycare, oh, really? That's the standard now. If you come into my business, I can shove you. I mean, it's a bunch of horse shit, frankly. And look, if you're hiding something, you're hiding something, right? It's just real simple blocking and tackling ABC stuff. And this is, I said this multiple, by the way, I went to a business mall yesterday and at one point was surrounded by about 25 Somali men. And, they were pretty angry. And I just looked at all of them and said, hold the phone. If you're pissed off about how you're being portrayed in the press. I'm a member of the press. Talk to me. Show me something different. Give me a message that I can report on. Don't come, at me like you're, Timmy Tough Knuckles, that you're going to intimidate me out of here, because you're not going to do it, A. And B, why don't you give us an example of behavior and attitude that doesn't look complicit? I mean, that's the bottom line. That's not necessarily the bottom line. The bottom line is Mehek was shoved. And she did call the police. She called me right after that video and said, the police are here. We have investigators. I had to call Columbus Police Department, Franklin County Sheriff's Office before we went out. I said, hey, we've got 5 guys. We're in a Ford Sprinter van. We're not harassing people. Just wanted to let you know. But here's the other point, Bob, I will make. Mm-hmm. Do you think a man ran out of any of those daycare centers or restaurants at me and John Rocker yesterday?
Do I think a man ran out it? No.
Yeah.
No.
About out of hell? Absolutely not. And therein, to your point earlier, why did they do it? Because it was Mehek. And the disregard and disrespect for women, I think, drips from that video clip.
I actually called in my promotion of today's interview with you, the John Rocker, your bodyguard. I said, Jack Windsor's got a professional athlete bodyguard there. Not too many people are going to mess with John Rocker coming with you, whether they know who he is or not. But you're right. They took advantage of Mehek because Mehek was considered to be, a target, somebody who was weak and somebody that they could bully out of there. And ultimately they were right, because she went away and said, I'm calling the police. Now, I don't know what the police are doing in that circumstance. Obviously, I don't know if they're actually, going to be, prosecuting or asking to see video or whatever of the assault that took place. But this is what they rely upon. They rely upon intimidation and, and threats, quite frankly, to get people out of their business. And you know what, Jack? Here's the thing. And I said this about Nick Shirley last week while you were gone in Orlando. People have been killed for less than disrupting multi-billion-dollar fraud schemes. Okay. I mean, I don't know if anybody ever watched Ozark, with Jason Bateman. It was a very, very, very popular series, a streaming series for a long time. And it was many series. It was largely about money laundering. And fake businesses like this that just shuffle tons of money in for providing no services whatsoever, and that money being cleaned and so on and so forth and sent into a lot of other places. People die. I know that's Hollywood, but it's based on reality. People die when people are in multi-billion-dollar schemes. They tend to like having their billions of dollars. They like their Porsches, they like their mansions, and they like sending money back to the only country to which they have loyalty, Somalia. Yep. Ilhan Omar has said that. What's the Columbus area representative who's a Somali?
Yes.
Mohammed, Ismail Mohammed, I think.
Yep, that's it.
Yep. Yeah, he talked about it on Somali television. They like their money and they like using it for their own purposes. And if somebody gets in the way of that, people have been killed for less. And that's why Nick Shirley is being bodyguarded now. He's got security from Brandon Tatum's Blackline security outfit. And anybody out there doing this, like whether it's Mehek or even you and John, anybody else that's out there doing it, you've got to be aware that there are people who will do anything, desperate things, to protect their scheme, their agenda. So
100%. Bob, I want to say one other thing, if I may, real quick.
Super quick. I think I've got Congressman Jordan waiting.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing, I need you to think about this. Where on earth do you go that within 300 yards you can have 3 daycare centers? Population that 80% of them are on cash assistance, SNAP assistance, or Medicaid assistance.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, we actually had a control group. One of the daycares that we stopped in to, the lady actually came out and said, come in. And I said, well, we're not going to record in. I don't want to record in. I can walk in. She's like, come on in. And she showed us the daycare. They were serving lunch. It was a night and day difference.
And I'm guessing that was not Somali run.
There's a black lady who came out who spoke fluent English and appeared to be an American citizen.
Gee, what a shock. What a shock that is. And by the way, to your point about 3 block radius or whatever you just said,
300 yards.
300 yards. How about 40 different daycares opening under the same parent umbrella group on the same day in Columbus, Ohio, collectively making $14 million in taxpayer funds in 2024 alone. So, I mean, the idea that this is not the scam that we think it is just ludicrous. Jack, I've got the congressman waiting. Thank you. Great.
Send my
great
best
work.
to Jim Jordan.
Let me know when the release of the 30+ minute video that you and John put together is coming out. We'll have you back on to break it down. All right.
Awesome, brother. Thank you. God bless you, man.
Thank you, Jack. That's Jack Windsor, Ohio Press Network. Make sure you subscribe to that online, the Ohio Press Network. Jack is a tremendous journalist, and he also has his own radio show down in Columbus. And you saw the video of him with John Rocker. All right. I think I've got Representative Jim Jordan in the green room. I'm not seeing him, however. So if Congressman Jordan is there and we can pop his camera on, there he is. Now I can bring him up. The chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, member of the Oversight Committee that has a very big hearing to be held today on all of this stuff, Jim Jordan, joining us now on AM 1420, The Answer. Mr. Chairman, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Bob. Good to be with you.
I just defaulted in a brain fart. I apologize. I just gave the old radio station call letters and frequency. When you do something,
I heard that when you do it.
When
that
you do
long,
something for 11, 12 years like that, it gets to be old habit. So sorry about that, everybody. But obviously, on Strictly Speaking, Unfiltered. So, Congressman, thank you for coming in again. Hopefully, you enjoyed your break. Your recess around the holidays.
Hope you as well.
Yeah, we did. But you're going back into the fire now. And today, the oversight, you're chairman of the judiciary, but you're on oversight as well.
Right.
And today, you guys are going to dig into the fraud, as I understand it, in Minnesota. I was just talking with Jack Windsor about the fraud in Ohio, and in particularly Columbus. But tell me what you are expecting today.
Well, we're going to hear from people who were helping expose it. So members of the legislature there in Minnesota, Republican members, we're going to hear from them. I think the Democrats are bringing in somebody who's going to talk about January 6th. Go figure. So yeah, we're going to hear from them. They were trying to bring this to light, hold people accountable. Looks like, based on what we've seen and learned thus far, that the administration up there in Minnesota, Mr. Walz and the rest of the team weren't too keen on actually holding people accountable. I think it's interesting, as I was looking through some of the facts here, it involves like 6 or 7 different federal agencies. So this scam was widespread. It was the Department of Agriculture they were scamming money from, the Department of Education, Housing and Urban Development, CMS, part of Medicaid. I mean, it was like they were scamming money from just about anywhere they could. And I think it underscores, you go back to the whole Doge effort, I think it underscores just the fraud that exists when you got this much federal money flowing out to states. The potential for abuse and actual abuse taking place is real, and we're seeing it now firsthand there in Minnesota and in Minneapolis.
You just mentioned with the whole Doge effort. I mean, obviously Elon and his team did some great work and exposed a lot of fraud, a lot of waste, a lot of abuse, but not this, at least to the level that we're talking about now. Why do you think that is, first of all? And then second of all, now that we are seeing the scale of this, not just in Minnesota, but in Ohio, but also in Seattle and in Boston, and I mean, literally all over the country, we're finding out, and again, mostly Somali-led. Why do you think all of that was missed by Doge, and what do you think the real scale of this is?
Yeah, I don't know that it was missed by Doge. I just don't know that they got to it yet. I mean, there's so much, I think spending that you need to look into. I don't know. All I know is, thank goodness we're now discovering it here in Minnesota. And we're looking like we're going to be able to hold some people accountable. I know the U.S. attorney up there has already indicted, I think, like 60-some people.
Yeah.
I think the vast majority of them are from, as you indicated, from the Somali community. So let's keep doing the good work. This is what oversight's supposed to do, the oversight committee. So let's expose this, and we're appropriate. If we find additional information that warrants the Justice Department taking action, then we'll do referrals. We've done a few of those this year in this Congress in the Judiciary Committee, but that's how the oversight process works. And so today's an important hearing. And then looks to be like we're going to have Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison coming in front of the Oversight Committee in about 3 weeks.
Thank God. That was the other part I was about to ask you about. It's one thing to make referrals, criminal referrals for the individuals perpetuating the fraud, but what about those who are supposed to be doing oversight at the state level? You're doing it at the federal level, and we've got to look at the state auditor, the governor, the Attorney General Ellison. All of them have to have, and quite frankly, so this doesn't look partisan, here in Ohio, all of those are Republicans. I don't know exactly how widespread the fraud is in Ohio as well, but I want anybody who is supposed to have been looking into all of this and providing oversight and allowing millions and billions of our tax dollars to be, to be stolen essentially through this fraud. Will we see them held accountable in addition to the actual fraudsters who are committing the acts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. If you did something wrong, you should be held accountable. And if you're not doing your job, you should be held accountable. And that's what we're trying to do in Minnesota. I mean, this was just so bad that was, they had this feeding our future, and they weren't providing any meals to people, yet they were getting paid for it. You had the child care centers that were supposed to be providing child care, and yet there were no children coming there. So it's like it's pretty basic, pretty bad, pretty ridiculous. What was going on here. I mean, just fraud in the basic sense of the term. So that's why I think this is important. You let everyone know the facts. And then, as we've said now, you hold people accountable.
So you said Walz is going to be among them, as well as Ellison coming in to testify in about 3 weeks. What do you make of Walz announcing he's not going to run for re-election and saying he's not going to resign either, though he's going to be committed to, I don't know, he said riding you and riding Republicans who were critical of him. It's kind of funny, you should have been riding your auditors and your investigators and inspectors to make sure that all of these businesses taking our tax dollars, not just Minnesotans' tax dollars, federal tax dollars, to make sure that they're not being wasted like that. What do you make of his stepping down?
Well, I think it just underscores how serious this whole scandal is. I mean, he'd be running. We all know he'd be running for re-election, but for this. So that just shows you how serious this problem is in Minnesota. They're in Minneapolis. So I mean, I think that's the only takeaway that makes any sense, and is obvious why he's not running for because he planned to do it. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was thinking about running for re-election, getting reelected, running for president. I assume all that was all part of the plan, but obviously that's changed now in light of what's been uncovered by the good work of Republicans there. It looks like in the legislature, who we're going to hear from 3 of those individuals here in about an hour and a half.
Is anybody on the committee looking at Ohio too? I know today is focused on Minnesota.
It's been talked about. Yeah, it's been talked about. There was one individual, as I was looking through some of the facts and doing some reading in preparation for today's hearing. There was one individual, I think he was in it was in the housing, one of the housing scams that was going on, where they were getting money from Housing and Urban Development, that agency here in DC, and some money there in Minnesota. Where he had purchased a fancy car, he'd invested money in Kenya, and also it showed some buying of real estate in Ohio. And I'm just wondering, is there some connection? I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting that it was Kenya, Ohio, and property he bought and items he bought there in Minnesota. So who knows? But I do think that we're beginning to look at that as well.
Okay. Congressman, shifting gears briefly. President Trump said yesterday out loud, we're keeping the oil. We're keeping the oil from Venezuela. They have obviously deposed Maduro. He's under indictment. He's now under arrest and he's facing charges. And we're keeping the oil from Venezuela. He said we're going to sell it on the open market, and that money is going to be used to benefit Venezuelans as well as Americans. Can you give me your reaction to the way the whole Maduro thing has been handled and what you think the real agenda is?
Well, just a couple things. First, God bless the troops. I mean, the courage, the precision that they carried this thing out was just amazing.
Incredible.
Second, the left who's been criticizing this, I keep pointing out, this is, here's a guy who wasn't recognized as head of state by either the Trump administration or the Biden administration. Here's a guy who ran a narco-terrorist criminal operation. Here's a guy who had a 5-year arrest warrant, who was playing footsie with Iran and China right here in our hemisphere. And somehow it's a bad thing that we brought him to justice. I mean, that makes no sense to me. Of course, it's a good thing we brought this guy to justice. And then third, to the point about oil, look, they just took assets from American companies where Americans had invested in the infrastructure, in the oil industry there in Venezuela, and Chavez and Maduro come in and say, no, it's mine. I'm taking it. You're not supposed to do that. They did it, and President Trump says, "We're not gonna stand for that." And oh, by the way, we don't need the oil. We got West Texas. We got places all over this great country with great resources, but we don't want China and Russia and Iran and everyone else getting the oil. We want this to be, as President Trump's talked about, on the open market, which will benefit the American companies who was stolen from, the equipment, everything else, and benefit Americans, and maybe most importantly, benefit Venezuelans.
Yeah, it's a great point. And then let's not overlook the other aspect of this, which is the drug aspect. There's a reason why we've been striking these narco terrorist boats, coming across the Caribbean and bringing this death to the shores of the United States. And he was he was more than just a corrupt president who was not really truly elected there. He was a drug cartel leader.
Yep.
I mean, literally. So when you think about the amount of people that are impacted, the amount of families that are impacted, I was actually thinking about this just yesterday for some reason, because Nick Reiner is about to be, have another court appearance or whatever. And I thought to myself, the reality is, Rob Reiner and his wife, like so many other millions of Americans, they were killed by drugs. Their drug-addled son in and out of rehab 16, 17 times. And I'm not trying to personalize this, but it's an example of the devastation that these imported drugs have on people and families in the United States. And people need to recognize the strike against Maduro here and the strike against those cartels will save American lives.
Yeah, families in every single community across this great nation, across Ohio, in the 4th district, families have had to deal with this, and it's tough. And if he can help stop some of that, hopefully stop all of that, that's a good thing. And that's President Trump understands that as well.
I'm seeing, videos of just scores of Venezuelans and other Hispanics and Latinos from Central America, Latin America, and so forth here in the United States cheering, thanking President Trump for doing this. We are now in the midterm election year of 2026. Do you think this helps? Because of, with the Hispanic voters being appreciative of President Trump and, the Republican Party for making this move? Do you think this will help politically speaking?
Well, I think Americans just appreciate the fact that we have a leader who projects strength from the Oval Office and takes decisive action. They saw it with what happened in Venezuela here in the past several days. They saw it with, I tell people all the time that you don't get the Hamas to release the hostages back to Israel. President Trump doesn't do what he said and make sure Iran doesn't get nuclear capability. You don't get the Abraham Accords in his first term if he doesn't put the embassy in Jerusalem. And you don't get Maduro brought to justice because Biden said he was going to do it. And of course, all he did was talk. President Trump took. I think Americans appreciate that. I think in a broader sense, I think this campaign is simple. In this election year, this midterm election year, I think pretty much this is the theme in just about every campaign in sort of modern politics today. I think you got to tell the voters what you did. You got to tell them what you're going to also continue to do. And then you have to remind them how crazy the left is. I think that's the campaign. What did we tell the voters? We said we're going to secure the border. We did. We said we were going to cut taxes. We did. We said we're going to bring down the price of gas. We did. We said we're going to get men out of women's sports. We did. President Trump said he was going to stop Iran from getting nuclear capability. He did. So you got all that list. We're going to continue to bring down prices. We're going to continue to do some things that I think are going to help on the price of homes for younger families who want to buy that first home. Continue to bring down the price of gas. Continue to focus on how we can improve the cost of health insurance. And then we're going to remind everyone how crazy the left is. When they were in power, we didn't have a border. When they were in power, they were trying to defund the police. I mean, you got to remind people how crazy today's left is. So much so that Mamdani gets elected in New York, and then the day he gets sworn in, what does he say? Forget rugged individualism. We want to be collectivists. We want to be communists. What? So I think you have to remind him of that. That's the campaign. And if we do that, based on the track record we've had under President Trump's leadership, I think we can defy history and keep the majority.
Yeah, we'll talk about Mamdani another day because I'm just extraordinarily infuriated by that literal statement. We are going to do the opposite of what this country was founded on, which is individual freedom, and we are going to make it a collective government-controlled country.
Lewis and Clark weren't a collective. The Wright brothers weren't a collective. Washington and the founders were going to celebrate 250 years. That wasn't a collective. That was just, this rugged individualism is what this country is all. And it's why we're the greatest nation ever. And to just attack the fundamental thing about this country, that was so ridiculous when he said that. And
who You know who supported collectivism? Lenin supported collectivism.
Yeah.
Stalin, Mao, the Kim dynasty. Those are collectives. Take everything from everyone and we'll distribute it as we see fit. It is the polar opposite of what this country is, and that man is now in charge of our largest city, and it's a terrifying thing. Congressman, I know you've got a heart out. You've got some hearings to go to. Good luck today in getting the information that the American people are demanding from Minnesota. I appreciate you coming on, sir, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, sir. That's Jim Jordan, Congressman and Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, member of the Oversight Committee. And, he wrote a book called Do What You Said, or Do What We Said. And the mantra being, of course, when you run on certain things, do it once you actually gain power. And President Trump has lived up to that in the first year. First year, he's even still 2 weeks away. It's January 20th, it would be the actual first calendar year in office. And how many things did he run on, and how many things just in 1 year? Promises made, promises kept. Congressman Jordan is right. I was about to ask, but I ran out of time because of, like I said, his hard clock there. It's an important day on Capitol Hill. But I was going to ask him about what President Trump said. He was at the GOP retreat at the Trump Kennedy Center. And I'm going to read a quote here. With the economy on the mind of voters. Well, you know what? Can I actually do the video? I might be able to share the video of this with you rather than just, there's just a short portion of what he had to say at this House GOP retreat. Let me pop this up here for you, and you can hear it rather than me tell you what he said. You can actually watch and listen to President Trump on this. Okay. All right, there he is. And here's what he said to Congressman Jordan and his fellow GOPers in the House.
But even if it's successful, they don't win. I don't know what it is. There's something psychological, like you vote against. You can win by a lot. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions. We won everything. But they say that when you win the presidency, you lose the midterm. So you're all brilliant people. Most of you are in this business longer than me. That makes me smarter than you, because look where I am, right? No, it doesn't. But I wish you could explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy. They don't. They have horrible policy. They do stick together. They're violent. They're vicious. They're vicious people, and they stick together like glue. They don't have a couple of the people that we have. A couple of people, not too many. Really very few. And that's why I want to just say that before we go any further, I want to express our tremendous sorrow at the loss of a great member, great member, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, who passed away yesterday, as you probably have heard. And he was the leader of the Western Caucus, a fierce champion on California water issues. He was great on water. He wanted, release the water, he'd scream at him. And a true defender of American children. He was a defender of everybody. And our hearts go out to his wife, Jill, and his entire family. He voted with me 100% of the time. And by the way, he wasn't a 3 o'clock in the morning person. Do you know what I mean by that? Where the speaker goes, sir, could you call up? Could you call? I said, what time is it, speaker? Sir, it's 3 in the morning. Could you make a couple of calls? How many? 9. So I'd start calling 3 in the morning. I said, I shouldn't use any names. I'm just going to create problems. But hi, Jim, and I'm not talking about Jim Jordan. I never had a call 3 in the morning for him. But I said, hi, Jim, how you doing? I just called to say hello, 3 in the okay, sir. Sir, you haven't spoken to me in 3 years, and it's now 3 in the morning, so I know what you want. You want my vote? And usually almost always they'd give it, but they wanted to be called. And with Doug, I never had a call. He was with us right from the beginning. I love those guys. I must say.
Yeah, this is a long speech, so I'm going to cut it there. I was hoping to get to the point where he told the House GOP at this retreat, if you don't win the midterms, which is where he started out there, he started to weave. If you don't win the midterms, they're going to impeach me again. And he's right, of course. They're already strategizing about how many different things that they're in articles of impeachment they're going to file against him. And they probably won't put it all into one impeachment effort. They'll probably separate it out, because once the first one is defeated, they're going to come back and impeach him a second time, so that the entire 2 years is filled with nothing but investigations and impeachment hearings. That's what the whole thing is going to be about. And when Congress can't do anything like passing the Trump agenda, do what you said you would do. Promises made, promises kept. When Congress can't do, what Trump promised, then obviously things grind to a halt. Things aren't going great for the country, and then they can win in 2028 and say, "Look what the Republicans caused." And then they get the trifecta, and then it's all over. And I know I repeat this on a fairly regular basis on this live stream and on this podcast, but that's the reality of it. Then the country is lost forever, because if they get the trifecta back, they will do what we are too cowardly to do. They will indeed nuke the filibuster, and then they will just change everything in the country. No voter ID allowed to be requested. They'll go back to all mail-in voting. They'll do unmanned drop boxes. They'll do text voting, text your votes. Swalwell said he wanted to do that. They'll add 2 more states. They'll add 4 more senators. They'll add probably 6 more Supreme Court justices, all appointed by the new Democrat in the White House. I mean, they'll literally cement power for the history of history to come, and the country will never be the same, ever. That's it. That's how important this election cycle is. That's why what Trump was saying. And he was talking, by the way, about the historical aspect of it. And he's not wrong, obviously. When a president wins, when a new president wins, from the opposite party of the last president, he gets his first 2 years, and then they give power to the other party in Congress. The minority party takes over, and then it makes things a lot more difficult for the last 2 years of the presidency. It's just been historically some 90% of the time in the midterms, the party that's out of power of the president takes over. And it's kind of how the checks and balances thing kind of works. And under normal circumstances, we can live with that. But these are not normal times, because these are not normal Democrats. These are TDS afflicted Democrats. These are crazy people. I'm all for the balance of power. When Barack Obama, for example, wins the White House, we need control of the Congress to try to put some checks and balances in place to stop him from going all radical, like, I don't know, the Affordable Care Act, which 15 years on is unaffordable for almost all Americans. You've got to have checks and balances. I get that. But this is not a normal period of time. This is a very, very crazy time in American politics and in American history, because TDS, you don't believe we have TDS sufferers? Did you see this? Do I have her? Not that I really want to punish you and give you Jasmine Crockett right now, but I think I might have to, only because if I had to suffer through it, you do. It's only fair. No, but did you see her? I'm trying to find it. What Jack Windsor said when he came on with me before is right. It's, the news right now is like drinking out of a fire hose. There are so many things that I have up here, and I want to share them all with you. And I just don't know if I'm going to be able to have time to find them all. There's just so many. Is this her? Let's find out if this is DJ Jazzy. Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett just went all FU. She just went straight up all hood rat in responding to the fact that Texas is going to have, indeed, Texas is going to have the new Republican drawn maps used in 2026. And that essentially draws her out of her job. Oh, here it is. I did find it. Okay, let me bring this up here. Yeah, this is Jasmine Crockett responding to the fact that she is indeed going to be out of Congress, and she is going to have to push through with her long shot, ridiculous, insane Senate run. There's no way her crap plays all over Texas the way it does in her district that got her into Congress. But if you don't think TDS is real, let's remind ourselves what it looks like and what it sounds like. This is here she is. This is Jasmine.
Definitely kudos to the Trump justice who wrote the 160-page opinion denouncing what took place in Texas, and fuck you to the Supreme Court for what they did. As well as, we'll see what happens in some other places.
Did she, we're unfiltered. This isn't terrestrial radio, so we can play this. But I want you to see what a hood rat sounds like. This Jasmine's ability to morph between educated, Ivy League style educated, rich girl, which is what she was. She was brought up and she was educated, and she speaks very fluently when she chooses to, but then she just morphs into, street trash voice, depending on her audience and depending on her mood. And apparently her mood, now that she knows she is going to be essentially have her district disappear, her mood is to say things like
took place in Texas, and fuck you to the Supreme Court for what they did.
She wants to be a senator. She wants to be a senator, and she is literally recording herself and sending it out to the world saying, F you to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Saying it out loud. That's TDS. That's an example of TDS, by the way. So the point being, these are not normal times. And if the balance of power shifts back to the Democrats in the House this coming November, the country is lost. I'm just going to be as blunt as I can possibly be about it, because that should spur you to action in your local community. It should spur your action online. You've got to influence people. We've got to influence people who are undecided. We've got to influence people who, may be looking for certain things out of the president, but not getting what they want right now. You've got to influence people who are just influenced by the media telling us that America's unaffordable right now, despite the fact that inflation is down to 2.7% from the 5+% that it was averaging under Joe Biden. You've got to influence people. And whether that means going on your own social media platform, starting your own podcast, for crying out loud, or supporting those like this one and making sure that our voices collectively are amplified, that's what we have to do. We have to influence people. If you voted for Trump the first time around back in 2024, vote for him again in this November. He's not on the ballot. The hell he's not. Every single element of what he said he wanted to implement, every part of the America First and the MAGA agenda that he ran on, and that he won overwhelmingly with, is up for re-election in 2026, right now, this coming November. So you tell people, if you voted for Trump the first time, vote for him and his policies again in 2026, and we'll have an opportunity to make this country as great as we believe it can be. But if we're not careful, and if Trump isn't on the ballot now, I'm not as motivated to go and vote, we're going to lose the country forever. Speaking of terrestrial radio, wow, did muscle memory. When I was talking to Jim Jordan there and I brought him in, muscle memory had me reflexively state a radio station that I am no longer associated with. And Kirstenau owes me 500 push-ups, because yesterday he came on this show, and his camera wasn't working. And I asked him the night before, can we test your camera, please? Because the last time you were on, it didn't work. He said, no, it's guaranteed to work. I've used it since then. If it doesn't work, I'll do 500 push-ups. I'm going to make sure he does every damn one of them. I've got to figure out a self-punishment for myself for saying the name of a radio station that I shouldn't have said a few minutes ago, or about a half an hour ago. That was painful to say. We are, strictly speaking, unfiltered. And that's what we shall remain. And we need to grow this podcast and grow our influence for all of the reasons I just described. The country is at stake. We need to influence people, and that means we need you. You've got to be a part of this thing. If you haven't hit that like button yet as you're watching this video, whether you're watching it live from 7 to 9 a.m. or whether you're watching it later in the day, hit the like button. That's the thumbs up button. If you haven't gone down into the comment section and said something, even if you just say, hi, Bob, watching, I don't care. The algorithms like engagement. When you click like, it says, oh, people are about it. When you comment, oh, people are talking about it. And then when you hit follow, oh, people want to see more of it. Oh, when you hit subscribe, people are really about it. The algorithms take all of this and put it into a little weird calculation, and they say those things are all good. Let's push this out to a few more people and see if they like it too. And then more and more and more and more and more. And that's how it works. So please, if you're here, if you're watching live or on Memorex, if you're in Gen Z, you don't get that reference. Millennials might not even get that reference. Gen Xers like me get it. Is it live or is it Memorex? Either way you're watching it, please use those tools and engage. Hit the thumbs up. That's the like. Make sure you comment. Make sure you follow. Make sure you subscribe. And then make sure you share it with somebody else that they can do it too. And also, don't forget the tip jar at the bottom of the page. Everybody in the chat, you are there. And so many people have been. I haven't looked at the chat much today because of our back-to-back guests. But anybody that's in the chat that's hitting the Rumble Rants button at the bottom, thank you for that. Because again, this entire show, this entire venture, this attempt to influence and help save this country, it is Patriot funded only. That's it. It's Patriot funded and no corporate radio. So we need you. So please be a part of that. There are a lot of different ways to help. You can see scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well. Anything you can do to make this project work is greatly appreciated. All right, we're going to lock it out for today. Thank you to Jack Windsor. Thank you to Congressman Jim Jordan. I want to send you out of here on some nice little music because we want to make this as professional as we can be, and why not? But thank you to Jack and Congressman Jordan. Thank you to you for watching this, whether it's live or on Memorex. Thank you if you were in the chat room for coming in early. Hopefully you're getting used to the new time now. 7 to 9 we'll go live every day, and then we'll let it run. You can download and watch every show again and again all day long. And please do that. That's the other thing the algorithm likes. The other thing the algorithm likes is people watching for a longer period of time. So my mantra is push play and walk away. Even if you're at work or something, turn on your phone, click on Rumble, click on Strictly Speaking, find one of my videos, whether it be today's or any other days, and just let it play. Put it on mute if you have to. But the longer people watch, the more the algorithm likes it, and the more they'll push the program out to other people, and the more our voices are amplified. So thank you. Be well, be safe, and stay free to the best of your ability. We'll see you tomorrow morning. J.R. Majewski tomorrow, by the way, a little early promo. J.R. Majewski is going to be with us tomorrow. Former congressional candidate from Ohio and now a massive online influencer in his own right. He'll be joining us tomorrow at about 7:30. Make sure you're here for that. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.